to the 12 Days of Page Turners. We are on day 4, and I have some more awesome holiday promotions for you guys. And we have some that are having some technical difficulties getting on, so they will pop on as they can. But that's enough chit chat from me. Let's dive into these holiday promotions. Ben Moore, you are on deck. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Amy. How are you doing?
You know, I am doing good. I'm excited. The Christmas is here and in town, and my daughters are writing Santa letters. So, you know,
Nice.
It's a good time. It's a good time. But Ben, tell everybody what genre you write in and the title of your book.
So I write horror, which is weird around Christmas sometimes. My book, The Seething, which you can kind of see right here, kind of cool picture right there, just came out earlier this year.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about what The Seething is about.
The Seething it's about a family that goes to a summer lake house in the mountains, and bad things happen from there, as you would expect from a horror story. Lake monster stuff and some weird psychic possession kind of things going on. That's the short version.
So tell me about what kind of horror is it? Is it psychological? Is it just like monsters and beasts and gore to everyone's delight? Or what kind of horror is it? I mean, I love gore, but not everyone.
It's a pretty classic monster story. I was sort of inspired by the monster movies I watched growing up in the 80s when I was writing this thing. So it's got a little bit of that. It's got some gore in it. It's kind of squishy in some parts. I don't think it's really focused on that. I think it's got some good, interesting characters in it as well.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about how the idea for The Seething came about.
Oh boy. Well, I live in Northern California in the Bay Area. A few years ago, I was hiking around a lake nearby, and we were right in the middle of one of those kind of dire summer droughts that we have here every few years. There's this really, really nice lake. It's like an 8-mile hike around the whole thing. And I was going around over a period of time, like every week or two, I'd go back up there. And I started noticing, that the water level was getting lower and lower and lower, until one day I noticed that the docks that people used to fish off of, or, tie their boats up to, the docks were actually resting right on the shore of the lake, because the lake had gotten, like 10 feet lower than normal. And I mean, being a horror guy, the thought just popped into my head, wow, if there's a monster in that lake, it's a lot closer to the surface now. And so that idea of, a thing in the lake being closer to the surface and having more access to get to people kind of stuck in my head. And then I started thinking also about, if there was something in that lake and its ecosystem was dwindling, what might it do to get out to find a better place to live? And the idea just stuck with me. And so I started writing.
I love how the level started getting lower and lower. And your first thing was, if there's a monster in there, it's getting sure closer to the top. Like, I love that that's where your mind went. So you can tell that you love like monster stories and those kinds of things. So what is your favorite monster story?
Oh gosh. Well, I love the Frankenstein monster. He's a classic. I read tons of Lovecraft growing up, so the kind of amorphous, squishy, tentacly things are big for me as well. Always been a fan of any kind of Wolfman story. Those are always good too.
Nice. So where did your love of horror come from?
I have absolutely no idea.
No?
I have to be honest, I really don't know. People have asked me that, especially a lot in the last year since this book came out. I don't remember a time in my life when I didn't just think monsters were neat. I actually have a specific memory of being about 6 years old and going to the movies, and there was the trailer playing for this crazy new space movie, right? With rockets and robots and stuff, and a Wolfman. It was Star Wars, of course, and there's this Chewbacca. I'm thinking 6 years old. Oh, cool! It's the Wolfman in space. I want to see that movie.
Yeah.
And I always thought monsters were cool. As I got older, I got more into the idea of horror, understanding the emotional ties of that kind of story, and really just always enjoyed it.
See, I always have a thing. I'm not even going to ask you to do it, but I'm not even going to lie. I am slightly curious if you can make like the Chewbacca sound because you're so fascinated with Wolfman. So I'm not going to ask you to do it, but it's like in my mind, I'm just going to pretend that you like word Chewbacca. You know, we're going to go with that whole mindset because that's where my mind goes. So we're going to go. But I thought the same thing when I watched Star Wars. Was just like, this is like a Wolfman creature, and like I'm into it, right? My daughter's middle name is actually from Star Wars, so if she was going to be a boy, it was going to be Skywalker, and she's a girl, so it's Sky Ray, right? Because I'm a nerd like that, and I love those things. And I won the coin toss with my husband on that.
Nice. I was gonna say, I'm glad you didn't name her like Greedo or something.
No, I wasn't gonna do that. That would not have been very nice at all. But I am curious to know, how long did it take you to write The Seething?
The Seething, off and on, a little bit over 2 years. What I was doing while I was working on it actually was writing a lot of short stories at the same time. This book came up, during the COVID lockdowns when we were all stuck in the house. And, again, part of what was kind of keeping me sane was going up and taking those walks around the lake. You could get out there, there's fresh air and not a lot of people around. And I would also take breaks from working on The Seething by writing a short story here and there. So, by the time I actually finished The Seething, I also had just about a book's worth of short stories as well. So, it took about 2 years, and I actually kind of wrote 2 books at the same time.
But what was that like for you? Because I've heard that more and more recently, especially, with the pandemic and everything, that, a lot of people had the more free time to write. And so they wrote and published their book. But I find that more and more authors are writing more than one book at a time or short stories at a time. And so how was that like for you? I would be so stressed out and disorganized, and I would be mixing up stories, like, and it wouldn't make any sense. So what was that like for you? Did you find that rather difficult, or was it just easier for you? What was that for you?
No, it really worked well, I think, because I would work on The Seething for a little while. I would plow through a few chapters and maybe get to a point where I'll back up a second. I'm a make it up as you go kind of writer. When I come up with an idea and just start writing and see where it goes. And I'd write a few chapters on The Seething, and sometimes I'd hit a log jam. I'm not quite sure where this wants to go next. And then I would jump on a short story and write something, completely different. And usually by not thinking about The Seething for a while, ideas would come up, or I'd be excited to get back to, I really want to get back to that and find out what, character X is working on right now. And then I'd jump back in and start on that one again.
See, okay, so before I make this comment, I want to know, are you an outliner or are you a pantser?
Pantser.
Okay, see, unite my people. Okay, see, I failed outlines in high school, which I don't even know how you can do, but my stories never stuck to my outlines, and so I failed, and it was this whole thing. So I really just have a disdain for outlines because they stress me out, and I'm jealous of those with an outline.
Yeah, what I find is, and I should say, I know how to outline. I do that when I'm doing like technical papers or essays, for work or something like that.
Yeah.
But when I write an outline, especially for fiction, by the time I get to the end, it's like, well, now I know how the story ends. I've already told this story. Now I've got to go back and do it all over again. But instead of in 5 pages, it's going to be, 300 pages. Well, I don't want to do that. I want to work on something new. I've gotten to the end. And so that was actually, for me, that was kind of a big log jam that kept me from writing fiction for a long time, is that feeling like I have to outline, and then, getting bored of the idea by the time I was done. So when I stopped outlining, that's when things really started to flow for me.
Oh, see, you're my people. I like it.
And that works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. Everyone's got their own process.
Yeah, I know. I have, when you mentioned that you have written, a lot of your short stories and The Seething kind of hand in hand together, like I said, I've heard of a lot of authors doing that. I had one author who was writing 10 books at one time, all different genres, different plots and twists and stuff. And I'm like, man, that is mental strength. Like I could not do that. Like, you're flexing mentally, and I'm not on par where you are. So I definitely am envious of that. And I find that to be amazing. But I want to know, what's next for you, Ben? Are you going to stay in horror? Are you going to dabble in a different genre? You have another book you're working on? Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, I'm a couple chapters into a new book that I've been working on for a while. which is horror again. I've been doing some short stories again as well. I seem to I just like writing them. It's fun to have a quick idea and, knock it out in a few thousand words. It's just, I enjoy doing it. And I've strangely, maybe not too strangely, I've had some ideas for a fantasy sword and sorcery story that I want to tell. And actually right now, all I've done is made a few notes about that to come back to later. And mostly what I've been doing, I've kind of gone full Tolkien, and have been developing the world that I want to tell those stories in before I start actually telling the stories. So who knows, maybe something will happen with that someday.
Nice. I love it. I love that you're dabbling and taking notes and that you have a few chapters into another book for you. I think that that's exciting and it's flexing of your creativity. I find that writers never just write one and done. There's always more reasons to write and different ideas and stuff.
Oh,
so
sure.
For the seething, right? So your main character in the seething, how did that character kind of come about? Did you dream it? Did it hit you while you were walking? How did that kind of come about?
It was kind of an out of the blue thing, to be honest. I started writing about this guy who has a family and was dealing with some stuff. And I had kind of intended to focus on him. In fact, there's a couple chapters in the early part of the book, the very beginning, that I ended up cutting out as I got further into it, because I realized, well, the book's not actually about this guy that I thought it was going to be about. It's about his teenage daughter, and it's about the family, and it's about actually one of the characters is a local police officer who I originally intended for her to show up for maybe 2 scenes. She starts to break up a fight in one scene, and then she was going to come back when they filed a police report, and that was the end of it. Shauna Lasher, the kind of sheriff of the town, and she took over. She was so much fun to write that I kept having to come back to her character to see what she was doing next. So she was a total, walk in out of the blue. I fell in love with that character. So I guess in answer to your question, I started writing about this one guy, and then these other people just kept showing up, like intruding on the story. Like, all right, well, fine. You get some screen time too. That's fine. You're all neat. I like you.
Yeah, we got to share. We're going to share the attention. Right. They can be attention hogs in your mind until you get them out. So I can understand that 100%. But tell me about your holiday promotion that you're offering this holiday season.
Well, I got a couple of things, actually. This is really fun. So my publisher, Bridget Skate, is for the next few days, is going to be doing, I think, 99 cents for the ebook. So if you're a Kindle kind of person on Amazon, this is where it's going to be. On Amazon, if you're a Kindle kind of guy or gal or whoever, you can get the book for 99 cents. And that's pretty good. They're also knocking a few bucks off the hard copy. So if you want to get a hard copy to kill spiders with or give to your friends, you can do that too. I'm not sure what they're knocking that one down to. That's a surprise to me as well. So that'll be kind of fun. And then lastly, for anyone who's not 100% sure they want to read this kind of thing, I've got a free story, which you can download from my website. It's called Gone with the Wendigo. And it's sort of my horror parody of schmaltzy holiday movies. I've described it to some friends as, imagine if Wes Craven or John Carpenter directed a Hallmark holiday special, and and there you go. And so for the books, you can go to Amazon.com and look up The Seething, my name, Ben Monroe. You'll find it there. Probably the fastest way to find all this is go to my website, benmonroe.com/holiday. And I have links to all the stuff there, and you're able to download the Gone with the Wendigo from there as well. And I think EPUB or PDF format, whichever you prefer.
Nice. I love that. Well, Ben, thanks for taking time out of your evening to come and hang out with us on the 12 Days of Page Turners.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks again for having me, Amy. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Red, you're on deck. Hey, Red, how are you? You're muted.
Hey, Amy.
I got you. I got you. I got you. I fixed it.
Thank you so very much, Amy. Really appreciate that. And Merry Christmas to you all. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season.
Yes, I'm telling you, I'm excited. My girls wrote a letter to Santa, and they want a ladder for their trampoline like Bluey and Bingo have. And so, that's what they're asking Santa for this year. And the handwriting, you can't really read that, but she'll tell you. Okay, they'll both just blurt it out 100%. They'll be like, this is what I want. Okay, I got it. I got it. But Red, tell us what genres you write in and the titles of some of your books.
I primarily write in health and wellness. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms, just like putting a Band-Aid on something that never heals. So what I specialize in is primarily anything dealing with longevity. But I also realize that there are other things out there that as we get older, that become a problem. So sometimes I just came out with a book a couple months ago on Alzheimer's. I've written over 40 some articles recently, I guess mainly during COVID, on some of the newer things that are happening in the Alzheimer's world. My book, No Matter What You Can Do It, talks primarily to the subconscious brain, that thing that we allow to control 95% of our everything we do. And there are certain things you can do that will actually allow certain habits to change. And part of it's realizing what words work and what doesn't. Now, when you say, I need this or I want this, those are words that connect with the conscious brain. But when you say, I expect or I intend, now you're starting to get a little bit deeper into the brain. The big problem with the brain is that it can't tell the difference between real and imagined. So if you can substitute imagined success stories where there's been failures in the past, now your brain isn't so sure it wants to sabotage your success. And so that's one way of doing it. My latest book basically is how to write a book and publish it for free. I was doing something with the military and I said, well, let me just do something real quick. And then I had a book thing at the local church. And so I just put this thing together literally in about 2 or 3 weeks. And it's available. It tells you essentially from the very, very beginning how to start writing a book, doing competitor analysis, look at everything the competition has. Where do you have value that's different, that's more mundane to your audience, and how you can go about doing that. I give you 2 or 3 easy, super easy ways of writing without using one of these or a keypad, and get your book done literally in a weekend. If you happen to be let's say a motivational speaker and you have quite a few different topics, there's another method. I call it the 1-3-5-7-9 method, where you kind of go down like an organizational chart and you keep everything very, very explicit as to which part belongs where, and it makes it super easy to get that done. So that book is my latest one out, not even 2 months. I have another book called Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging. I go into 2 primary causes of aging. One of them is your telomere length, and the other one is your human growth hormone. Both, as you get older, kind of depart a little bit from the normal younger processes, especially the human growth hormone. We just don't make as much as we did before. And our lifestyle habits have a tendency to erode our telomeres at the end of our DNA. And both of those can be overcome super simply. It's really a non-issue with that. Then I have another book called The Joy of Ageless Health, where I go into the details about how does disease form in the body at the cellular level, and what can you do with each one of those. You're talking about stress and toxins and radiation, inflammation, infection, diet, even expectations can have an effect on your disease progression. I have 3 health books that I'm writing right now that may come out. I'm not quite sure, but one's on pain management, one's on cancer treatment, and the other one is on weight loss, looking at it from a chemical perspective. What really happens in the body at the fat cell level? What happens if I take a look at stage 4 pancreatic cancer, standard genetic dysfunction treatments, about 4% survival rate at 5 years. If you treat it as a metabolic disorder instead of a genetic dysfunction, it's about a 96% survival rate in 5 years. So there's a lot of different things as to how do you view the disease and what would work based on the person who's treating you. Pain management, again, I'm going through all the different levels of what happens at the cellular level from that first instant, that first second of trauma, and all of the different chemical reactions that explode out from there. And what can you do to kind of tap each one? And not so fast. Slow down, stop, and literally be able to control a lot of pain that generally speaking, a Tylenol or an aspirin wouldn't be able to control easily. Mm-hmm. And then I have my Camino book that it's either the road more taken, more written. Anyway, the road less walked, I guess, is the main book. Mine's the road more walked, because it's about 300 to 500,000 people walking a year. And so before COVID, it was really ramping up to about 350,000. After COVID, it went way down. Now it's getting back up again. And that's mainly a picture book. I'm looking at what are the actual roads you walk on. These are 2,000-year-old Roman roads that we're walking over a mountain where the highways go around the mountain. And so that's kind of a picture book that I'm working on. So got several of those things, and I'm hoping they're out by Christmas, but I can't make any guarantees. But if they are, it's super simple. All of my ebooks, no matter what, they're $1. Doesn't matter. All of my paperbacks, $10. Doesn't matter. Normally they're almost 20. So I'm looking at it, almost 50% off. But $10, no matter what book it is, for a paperback, $1 for an ebook. Simple as that. Can't make it much easier.
No, I love it. Simplicity is like my middle name. I love things that are simple. And you have quite a bit to offer, Red. But I'm dying to know, what is this MRO Global? That's new.
MRO Global LLC is my company. I'm the chief researcher. So every time that I have several programs, you notice the USA Global TV and radio icon up in my left shoulder. Anyway, I do 4 shows a week there, soon to be 5. And some of them, I know Amy's been on the show. I think Kathy's been on the show. I'll make an introduction to Kaylee, is that right? And to Ben. If you're interested, you'd like to be on one of my shows, I have a show where a guest comes on and we talk about your books, talk about any other services you have, your business, whatever it may happen to be. Would love to have you join me on there. It's a 40-minute deal every Thursday. I have a show coming up this Thursday on the Corner Bookstore. Well, I'll be hosting authors on that particular program. So from another program on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, there are places for authors to come on and be guests. And then I do a normal presentation. It's called Talking Heads. And right now I'm in the middle of I think I'm part 4 of a part 6 series on pain management. I just finished an 8-part series on cancer. I did, I think, a 7 or 8-part series on weight loss. But I start and look at the chemical, what happens at the very start, and then as it goes through the body, what options do we have? That's my passion. That's what I love to do. I fell in love with chemistry as a 16-year-old, and I got my degree, but got an invitation to Vietnam, so I never got a chance to practice it. Nowadays, now that I have 6 Saturdays and a Sunday every week, I do what I want to do, and a lot of it's researching stuff in the human body.
Yeah, I love that, Red. You have so many different advices and avenues and stuff that you can go down. The fact that you're offering 50% off on all of your paperback versions of your book and all your ebooks are $1 is amazing. You just really want to help and educate people. And I feel like you should do one on, I don't know the best way to word it, so I'm going to just encompass it and then you can break it down how you want, but on women's health, just different ways, because I know women's health and the things that work for women are different from men. So I would buy that book, Red. I would buy that book mostly because I need that book in my life, and who better to write it than the man that I trust in all of my health endeavors.
Well, something, I don't have that on my whiteboard. However, when I was talking about weight loss, I did talk about menopause, perimenopause, before and after, because there's certain things that happen during that 30-day window that this hormone's in charge during this 6 days. And then all of a sudden, whoa, there's another hormone over here. So yeah, get out of here. And that person's in charge. And if you're not paying attention to who's in charge, you could be doing things that you think are helping you and they're not. But you're absolutely right. There are a lot of things that are different. And that may be, in fact, something I'm going to do? I am actually going to write, because if I don't write something down, it's not going to help it happen. So I have that. And I'm going to put Amy there because you're going to be my inspiration on this one. What avenues I should probably pursue, because I'm going to be looking at it from a number of different aspects. But yeah, I'll put that one on the list. I have one other one that I've been toying with, and that's on how to speak primarily as an author when you're trying to sell your book to an audience, because that's a different kind of speaking. You want to add the value that's there. So if I can show how to improve an author's speaking ability in front of their whether it's on Zoom or whether it's in person, that's another one I have. So I'm a distinguished Toastmaster, been that way for over 10 years. And that is one of the options that I enjoy doing, is speaking in front of groups. And I do that. I speak at least 3 or 4 or 5 times 6 times a month, at least minimum.
Nice. I'm much better behind the scenes, like doing this at home in my comfort bubble. You really get my personality. In person, I'm shy as heck. Like I am the shyest person unless you really get to know me and we've become friends. Then I will open up and I'll be like this. But I'm generally a very shy person. I tried Toastmasters and I'm very envious of the fact that you have succeeded in that because I break out. Like my chest turns red, my cheeks get red. I have to wear scarves. And it'll be like, June and summer and you got a scarf on because you're talking to people because I just have like this
but
anxiety about it.
Part of it kind of goes away for every inch you get over 5 foot.
Well, I'm not over 5 foot. Okay. So it's never going to go away from me, Red. I'm only 5 foot tall.
Just trying to reinforce that for you.
Thank you. I've turned into the fact I'm 31 years old and there's some things that I'm just never going to be good at. And I've come to terms with it. It's not going to stop me from doing them, but I just will never be good at them. And I'm okay with that. I've accepted who I am and being 5 foot. I always use the joke that, God builds you to the height and stuff until it took you to reach perfection. It took me a lot quicker to reach perfection than the tall people. And so I'm just vertically challenged at the same time. So that's kind of my running joke that I always make. Cause Josh is my husband is 6 foot, 6'1". So it's a big gap for sure.
My daughter's 4'10". My daughter's 4'10". She's a deputy sheriff. She wears about 40 or 50 pounds of gear on her shoulders with her gun and her taser and all the rest of that stuff she carries. So she's, but she loves it. She's, since she was 5 years of age, she always wanted to be a cop. And so she went to police academy and she's been doing that and she absolutely loves it.
I love it.
And
she's not people.
And at 4'10", nobody gives her any trouble. Even when she was working in the prison, they'd have to go out into the dining areas and she'd say, if there was ever kind of a bustle going on or something, she would always hurry over to get the tallest, biggest guy out there because they're usually the pussycats. Mm-hmm. It's the ones that are really small like I am. You got to work out for them because they think they're bulletproof. But you can calm down a big guy very easily compared to somebody your size or slightly larger because they think they have an advantage over you that you don't know about. Anyway, I'll turn it back over to you, Amy, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks you so very much.
Oh, absolutely, Red. Thanks for taking time out of your night to come and hang out with us on the 12 days. Kathy, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Hi, Kathy. How are you? It's been such a long time. How's Ohio?
Oh, it's lovely up here. We have a much better chance of a white Christmas than you're going to get in Texas.
Well, ain't that the truth?
Yeah, I've seen white Christmases in Texas, but they're more predictable up here. Beautiful. The first snowfall is gorgeous. After that, it loses its appeal.
Yeah, I believe it. It's kind of like here in Texas when you see the snowflake and it melts before it hits the ground, but everything's closed and you're like, yes, that was the best snowflake ever. Right. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, Kathy, tell everybody what genre you write in and the title of your books.
Well, I've written in quite a few different genres, but right now I'm kind of fixated on historical fiction, particularly the Mayflower chapter of American history. I've been kind of in that venue for about the past, 7 or 8 years now, I guess. And ironically, the Pilgrims did not celebrate Christmas. They just didn't think it was a holiday they needed to pay any attention to. They actually landed or sailed and anchored right around December 25th when they finally figured out where they were going to get off the ship and build their settlement. And Christmas Day was just another very much needed work day. They had to get some shelter built and get off of that ship that they've been on since July. So I've just been living in the 15 and 1600s for the past several years. And every once in a while, I pop back into the 21st century to see what's going on now.
So what kind of drove you to write about, the Mayflower and the Pilgrims and all of that? What was that driving factor for you?
My mother, she was a reference librarian. And she already knew that we were somehow connected to a couple of people on the ship, the Brewster family. But she spent her early retirement years locked up in a genealogy research library before anybody had any access to a personal computer. Nobody knew what one of those was. But she did all of the tedious research of doing the documentation of birth and death and marriage records back to the 1600s, documented all that, got her membership into the Mayflower Society. One of the foolish things I did when I was a young adult while she was doing all this is she invited me to join with her, and I wasn't interested at the time. But I inherited all of her notes and started paying attention to them and reading through them and thought, this is really interesting. I want to know more. So I've started doing my own research. And of course, it's much easier today with a computer and a Wi-Fi connection. You can be anywhere in the world and talk to anybody in the world. And so I've been able to come upon a lot of information that my mom wasn't able to get to.
Nice. So what has your research journey look like?
Well, a couple of things. The legend that we teach about Thanksgiving is based on a real event that happened. But as one person said, they give us about a cup of information about an ocean worth of history. And so there have been a lot of important details left out, like why they really got on the ship, all the struggles that they really had, the very first encounters between the English pilgrims and the indigenous people in New England. We actually owe Thanksgiving to the indigenous people. They saw the pilgrims offloading the ship, building houses, planting a garden, and decided there needed to be a treaty. So they approached the pilgrims and said, let's sit down and talk through an interpreter. There was a Native American who had spent some time in England. He'd been kidnapped and taken over there. He learned English, so he came back and was available to interpret for them. They wrote a treaty in the spring, and one of the tenets of the treaty was, if your people are in trouble, we will come and help you. If our people are in trouble, you will come and help us, and then some other points. And so that fall, they had their first harvest, and they were very excited about it because they nearly starved to death the previous winter. Half of them actually did. They didn't die of starvation as much as disease, but half of them did not make it through the first year. So they were celebrating, and their way of celebrating was to get out their trusty muskets and shoot them off and march up and down with them. The natives were in the neighborhood hunting, heard them, and came rushing in to help. When they saw they didn't need help, they went out and rounded up a bunch of deer and who knows what else and came. And there really was a 3-day celebration together. But it wasn't the friendly pilgrims inviting the neighbors to lunch. It was the neighbors coming to see if they needed help that actually led to Thanksgiving. A couple of the other things I discovered was I was horrified to find out that 19 women got on the ship over into England, and only 4 of them were still alive a year later. The
wow.
were just incredible. And one of them is my descendant. So Mary Brewster is my great-grandmother back 12 generations. So we come from pretty hardy stock in our family, which came in really handy with the pandemic because I inherited some of those genes, I guess. We certainly were impacted by the pandemic like everybody was, but nobody in our family got deathly ill from it. So I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Nice. So I want to know more, Kathy. Like I could sit here and listen to you about, your pilgrims and the Thanksgiving story and all the research and stuff went into it. So how was that in converting all the research and everything that you had learned into the Mayflower Chronicles? How was that transition for you?
Well, on the one hand, I didn't have to worry about a plot line because history had already written the plot. So I didn't have to come up with a plot. On the other hand, when you do research, one thing sounds interesting. So you go to Google to research it, and then an hour later, you're 15 details down the road from where you started out, and you can't possibly use all that information. So the hardest part really was figuring out what information to include and what information to just have to leave out or set aside for another story another day, because the more you learn, the more there is to learn. It just goes on. I mean, we're covering 400 years of history involving 3 countries. So
right,
there's a lot of information out there.
I can only imagine. I would not be good at cutting information. I'll be like, oh, but I love this part and this needs to be in there. Like I wouldn't. I would have like, I don't know. I would have like an 800 or 900 page book. I wouldn't be able to cut things out.
That's why we have editors.
I know. That's why everybody has their love-hate relationship with their editors, right? So how did you kind of do your own deciphering on what should be in the book, in the Chronicles, and what shouldn't? What was that for you?
Well, I actually got some help. Some of you know Roger Leslie. I actually hired him to be a writing coach. And so he helped me a lot. He would preview everything for me, and he would say, Yeah, that's interesting, but it's not really moving the story along. So maybe you want to put that in the cuts section and, come back to it some other day in some other way. I have beta readers, and I would ask them, too much or too little about this particular part of the story. Did you want to know more, or did you get more information than you really wanted? And so beta readers are really helpful to me. And editors.
Yeah, the love-hate relationship with editors, right? Everybody loves them until they deal with an editor, and then they're like, "You're cutting my story apart."
Right.
That would be me yet again. A reason why I'm not a writer, because I would not play nice. I'd be like, "No, this needs to be in there. I'm sorry. I'm emotionally tied. I'm emotionally tied."
I did go to the Met on just a couple of points in the Mary Brewster story. I said, no, this really needs to be in here. Trust me, I know people who are in love with the Mayflower story, and they're going to want these details. So take my word for it. And I won that particular one.
I love it.
I had to concede.
There you go. Ready to go to bat for him, Kathy.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So how many is the Mayflower Chronicles? Is that 2 books? Is it 3 books? How many
I've
is
got
in that?
2 historical fictions out. The first one is Mayflower Chronicles, The Tale of Two Cultures. And that one includes a whole section written just from the perspective of the Native American people, based on my conversations with some people in that community and a lot of research in museums and books written by Native people. And then they're woven into the rest of the story and in other places. But there's one whole section on viewing the Mayflower sailing into Cape Cod from their perspective and what should they do about this, because these people look like they're here to stay because they brought women and children with them. And then the second book focuses specifically on what that journey was like for the women on the ship, particularly Mary Brewster, because she's my relative, but the other women as well. So for example, the ship was supposed to leave in July. 3 women on that ship were pregnant. They expected to arrive in September, and they didn't. They were 2 months late and 400 miles off course. So it was the middle of a bitter winter when they finally arrived. All 3 of those women delivered their babies on the ship. I cannot imagine. There was no privacy. You might have been able to put a screen up or a curtain or something up to visually separate them from the rest of the people, but there was no privacy. I just cannot imagine how really challenging that must have been. And then the concerns about taking care of a newborn infant under those conditions. 2 of the babies lived. One was born stillborn. 2 of the mothers lived and one did not. She died of an infection a few days later. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I have to have my privacy. So I'd be like, nope, I'm going to hold it. I'm going to just hold it. Okay. I wouldn't be able to hold it because they were like 2 months late. So that wouldn't happen. But in my mind, I would feel like I could. But it was, a different time and, medically wise and everything. It was all just different and being on the ships and stuff. And so the infections and stuff. But I couldn't do it. I'm telling you, I wouldn't be able to deliver a child on a boat.
Yeah, if it depended on me to get over here, my whole family would still be living in England. I don't think I could have done that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just.
But here's a remarkable thing. So there were 102 passengers that started. And today they estimate there are 35 million people descended from those 102 passengers. And about 10 million live in the United States. So the rest of them decided this wasn't it after all, and they wandered off other parts of the globe.
Wow. See, that's always the things that fascinate me the most about historical fiction is all the research and things that you do to kind of bring your characters to life within your books and make sure that the time period is right and the settings are right and the things that they would say and all of those things. So what was your favorite part or your favorite story or piece of history that you learned about that you would say is your favorite?
Well, 2 favorites. One was I had always wanted to go to Leiden in the Netherlands because I knew they had been there. And I ran into a young college-age student who was going to go spend a semester over in Leiden. And so I started looking into Leiden University and what that was all about. I actually had a chance to go there back in 2019. And it is just a wonderful city. It's a little bit south of Amsterdam. So not as congested as Amsterdam, but just lovely with the canals running every place and bicycles. There's more bicycles than people, I think, in Leiden. So that was a really good experience. And then the other one was through a very long circuitous route. I was actually able to meet 3 generations of descendants from the Native American leader who called on them to negotiate the treaty. They're living in the Rhode Island area, and they still have their tribal council and their Native American traditions and ways of doing things. And I was able to interview them. And then I was supposed to meet them in the summer of 2020, but the pandemic put a kibosh on that. But I did finally get to meet them, not this past summer, but the one before, and spent several hours with them having a wonderful conversation. They showed me all over. The campus of Roger Williams University is located on what was their sacred land. And so they have a partnership now with Roger Williams, and they've got displays around the campus of what happened on that place and approximately what year it happened. And that was really gratifying to me to get to meet them and to see that there are some real bridges being built between the cultures. And we're trying to get back to a more authentic telling of our American history.
I love it, Kathy. Well, this holiday season, tell us about your holiday promotion that you're offering.
Okay, well, because it is ironic that they didn't actually celebrate Christmas, but they have a rich story to tell. So what I can do is I'm offering a 2-for deal. I'm offering both paperback books for $34.72, which is a savings of $10. And we can do they can contact me through my website for the details of how I can get them to them, which is how are you? Wise, like be a wise person, then, like then and there. It's a play on my name, but nobody can say and pronounce how wise. And so it's www.howwiseden.com. You can see my books on my store page, and you can email me directly, and we'll make arrangements to get it to you. So for the month of December, it's a 2-for deal. And if you want, because I will be shipping the books directly, I can autograph it if you want to give it to a gift to somebody, I can do that for you. I can wrap them together in pretty little Christmas paper, or wrap them separately, or just get the books to you and you can do what you want to with them. So it's howwiseden.com. It'll be $34.72, a $10 savings off of buying the books separately. And the other thing that I have been doing a lot lately is presentations at libraries and service clubs and faith-based organizations and all kinds of places. I am offering a 45-minute free tour of the places I went on my research. So we'll go to Plymouth, Massachusetts, a couple of different places in England, Leiden in the Netherlands, and tell the story through pictures in about a 45-minute presentation. So if you have a group that's interested in that, let me know, and we'll work out details to make an appearance for just this month of December.
Wonderful. Well, Kathy, it's always so good to talk to you, and thank you so much for joining the 12 Days of Page Turners this year.
This is fun. I really appreciate what you do, Amy. You are so creative.
Oh, thanks, Kathy. I try. Well, you guys, coming up next is Kaylee. Kaylee, how are you? You're muted.
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I am doing good. So tell everybody what genre you write in and the title of your book.
Absolutely. So my book is called Make Money Your Things. So I write in nonfiction, and I guess money related. And I guess there's a bit of like memoir as well shared in that book. So Make Money Your Thing is my book, but I also have a kid's picture book, which is called Money Wise Mabel's Bursting Bank. So a little bit of variety there in the type of writing I do.
I love that. So is it fair to say that you have a background in money management, finance, running numbers?
Absolutely, yes. I'm a numbers person, but always had that like itch to be very much a creative person as well. I loved writing stories all through like my elementary years and whatnot, but I kept getting the messaging that I wasn't good at it, or for whatever reason. I would write really long stories that would almost like never end. And it was like grade 4 or 5. And I could tell my teachers just weren't even reading the whole thing. Like it was just, they gave up probably 5 pages in. So I think that to me felt like, oh, maybe this isn't my calling, but I was really good with numbers. So I went down that path. But my love for numbers also reminded me of how much I just want to share this with other people, because I find this so fascinating, interesting, and it's so important because we're all impacted by money in our daily lives. So I wanted to write these books to really help people in that realm. Financial literacy is often something that's overlooked, and I think it's something that could really benefit everyone, just getting a little bit more of a confidence boost when it comes to money and numbers.
See, I love that you wrote one for kids, because I have a 4 and a 3-year-old, but my 4-year-old has somehow, I've created a monster. And if something breaks, she's like, "Oh, mommy, it's okay. We'll just go buy a new one." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, we're not just going to go buy a new toy." Like it doesn't, no, you know how long mommy has to work to buy you that new toy, or your dad, then becomes this whole thing. And then I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I sound like my mother." And I'm like, "Oh, well," it becomes this whole thing. So my daughter needs that book, and she's only 4, and she's incredibly bad with money. She takes
Yes,
my
I know. You
quarters
wonder,
and
it's this
stuff.
whole, yeah, I was like, is it this genetic? I have a daughter too. She's 9 now. I was writing it when she was actually really young, but I also have a 1-year-old son. And yeah, she was showing signs of being terrible with money. And that's what really inspired me. And it's kind of based on, I guess, then her and myself as well as a child. So I was always really fascinated with money. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, but I would notice, other people and my friends, and they would be getting the toys that I wanted, and the things that I was asking for Christmas, and I didn't get those things. And it was something I wanted to figure out and learn more about. And then on one occasion, when I was begging my mom for a Super Nintendo, instead of saying the usual, like, "No, you can't have that, we can't afford that," she had said to me, "Well, you can save up for it and buy it yourself." And that was like mind blowing to me, because it wasn't a no. Like when your parents, say something else, that's a yes, right? So I just had to figure out how to make my own money. And so that's kind of like Money Wise Mabel, my character, the idea of her saving up and filling up her piggy bank and thinking about all the things that she can save up and buy. So it's that, also that empowering and teaching kids about the possibilities too when it comes to their finances.
Oh yeah. See, my daughter needs that, because she's just, I tell my husband this all the time. I'm like, she is going to like murder our bank account. Like she's gonna murder it, and I know it. And she's only 4, and it's like whenever we go to this indoor playhouse, they have those quarter machines. Because I'm telling you, people that have businesses for small kids are smart. Like they're smart, because you can't get out without buying anything, because everything's on little people level. That's what I always say. So then they just grab things, and you have to buy it because they've already grabbed it and probably licked the lollipop. So you have to buy it. It's this whole thing. But she's got this quarter machine. And so to get my kids to leave, I have to give them a quarter to go out. And I'm like, this is not the right way to do this at all, but I don't need a screaming match. So yes, my daughter needs your book. So I'm excited about your holiday promotion when we get there, because I definitely need that in my life. I've already come to terms with it. But what was it like writing Make Money Your Thing and then going to a children's book? Is there one that you prefer over the other, that you had a little bit kind of more fun with? Or do you see yourself kind of writing more Make Money Your Thing kind of genre? Or are you going to come back and dabble in the children arena?
That's tough. That's a tough question, because I think they're so different. Like the kids book, it's fun, creative, and it's, finding like a play on words and just like really going imagination wise, which is like, I'm the analytical numbers person. So I really had to go outside of the box for that book. So it was fun. And I do really love like looking through the eyes of things from like a child's perspective. It is really fun and imaginative. So I did really enjoy that. So I might take Money Wise Mabel on like other journeys learning about money. But yeah, Make Money Your Thing, to me, that's something that's more like, I don't know, it feels like something impactful for like a large range of people, ages of people, that I think is just something that I see too, as like when my daughter grows up, something I hope, that I can give to her to read, and it's everything kind of bundled in one that I would love to teach people and give people when it comes to money and any knowledge on that end. So yeah, I think they're both fun in different ways.
So which one do you see? I guess a better way to word this question, because words are not my strong suit. You guys all get my emails. Grammar and words are not my strong suit. You're lucky that everything is spelled correctly, to be honest. But what's next for you? Do you see like more books coming from you, more speaking engagements? Kind of what's next for you?
Yeah, it was really fun writing a book, and it tapped into that creative side that like was hiding for years and years. And so I do want to write another book. I want to aim it towards more like teens, and so like kind of coming out of high school or college or university, that sort of that step into adult years where you're like in the, having to deal with money and actually having to start making money decisions and things like that. So that's my next book. So I'm trying to cover like all the age ranges when it comes to money books.
Yeah, I think that's important though, because when I went to like making my own money and like budgeting it and everything like that, it was still easy because I was still living at home. So I was like, yeah, I'm totally going to go out and eat. But then like, when I got married and I moved out and I'm paying all these bills and stuff, I'm like, oh man, I really just want to go out to eat, but I cannot. My bank account just won't like me if I do that. And so there is like a big kind of mindset shift that happens, I feel like, in those things, right? So
Yeah,
but
it's huge.
I mean, I also go to the fact where like I don't know why I gave up naps, and I never wanted to nap, right? Because as an adult, I'm like, man, I really want to nap. Like, and maybe if I could nap to make money, that would be great. Like, I feel like
Oh.
all of us would be so great if we could just take naps, because my 4-year-old fights them, right? She fights sleeping and all that. So I'm like, what if I pay you to sleep? Would you sleep then? Like, let's figure out a way to negotiate with you. So that's why I find your children's book is super important and impactful for people like me who can see the struggles of their kids. But for teenagers and stuff, I wish I had a book like that. I just saw like examples and how my parents lived, and my husband, my fiance at the time, and how like all of that kind of went about. But I think like as the progression, because I feel like once you get older, right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not a numbers person either, like certain things kind of come more into play, like retirement and investing and 401ks and like all of these numbers, and you're like, oh, I need to move money over here. But when you're young and you're just like, no, I just want to go out and I just want to get something to eat and go see a movie and do all of that. So I feel like it's important because it changes as you get older.
Yeah. And it's also just the impact of like doing some of those things early on, like how, massive that effect can have versus starting a little bit later. So when I talk to people, like their biggest regret is that they didn't start saving sooner and investing sooner. So it can change like really the course of people's like journey and goals and retirement ages. Like it can have such a big impact.
So who had an impact on you that made you like numbers and managing money and all of that?
I think it was growing up and seeing like what my mom went through. So she shared a lot about our finances. And I think it was, because when I don't think she liked having to say no all the time. And I could tell it was really hard and stressful on her, but I think she wanted to share that information just so we could understand. So we knew it wasn't just her like, being like evil or something or not fair or whatever. So like learning that and then seeing how she was able though to like stretch $1 or make it all work somehow was amazing. And so to me, it was like, like if I can figure this out even on like a bigger level, maybe there's more to this. And then if I can learn about money, I can share that with other people. And, I never wanted to see women have to go through what I saw my mom go through. But I think it was seeing that and getting it. It's like that, I guess like in some circumstances, you see like the value or what you learned from it. And it's so interesting to know that like something that seems so hard and challenging at the time was something that like sort of put together my whole career path of like what I want to do and why I want to do it. And so it's really interesting, like the benefits that come out of some of those really stressful experiences, or at the time what feels like, it wasn't a happy time, it wasn't a positive time at all, but from that and what I've learned from that and what I've created now, it's so neat to see that progression and that evolution.
So tell us all about because I'm dying to know, and I am incredibly impatient. I'm dying to know what your holiday special is this holiday season.
Absolutely. So it's going to be for my novel, Make Money Your Thing. The ebook is going to be on for $1.99.
Nice. I need both those books in my life. I'm telling you, the 12 Days of Page Turners is where I rack up on all of the books that I need to set for like next year that I can read and kind of go into. And so I love it. And I get to talk with you guys, which is always so much fun. But Kaylee, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to come and hang out with all of us.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. I hope that you are taking advantage of all of these holiday promotions. We're closing out day 4, but don't worry, because tomorrow we'll be back with day 5 with different authors, different holiday promotions, and different genres. But tonight, make sure that you take advantage of all of these holiday promotions. They're in the copy above and the comment section, so take advantage of them while you can. But for now, everybody, take care.